When my daughter told me to find somewhere else to die just days after burying my husband, I collapsed on our marble foyer, the home I'd decorated for 37 years suddenly feeling like a stranger's house. 3 days later, I was sleeping in my car outside my best friend's apartment, too ashamed to tell her I'd been thrown out like yesterday's trash. That's when I realized family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's just a pretty word for your executioners. If you're watching this, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me if you've ever been betrayed by family. Trust me, this story twists harder than a roller coaster built by vengeful engineers. My name is Eleanor Harmon, and 6 weeks ago, I was planning my husband James's 70th birthday celebration. Now I'm planning how to reclaim the $33 million he left behind and expose the daughter who tried to steal it all. The morning James died was deceptively ordinary. Sunshine streamed through our bedroom curtains as I rolled over to wake him for breakfast. His face looked peaceful, almost like he was smiling. But when I touched his shoulder, the cold stillness of his skin told me everything before my mind could process it. "James?" I whispered, my voice cracking. No response. The paramedics arrived within minutes, but there was nothing to be done. Heart attack in his sleep, they said. Quick and painless. Small mercies that felt like cruel jokes. My daughter Carla flew in from Chicago that afternoon. I remember collapsing into her arms at the airport, grateful to have her strength when mine had abandoned me. "I'll handle everything, Mom," she whispered, stroking my hair. "Dad would want you to focus on healing." Those words would haunt me later, because handling everything apparently meant systematically removing me from my own life. The funeral was a blur of black suits and hollow condolences. James had been respected in the community, a successful real estate developer with connections throughout the city. I barely registered the hundreds of people who shook my hand and offered empty platitudes. Script part separator ===. 3 days after we put James in the ground, Carla cornered me in the kitchen. I was making tea, chamomile, James's favorite, when I felt her presence behind me. "Mom, we need to talk about arrangements," she said, her voice clinically detached. I turned, clutching my mug like a shield. "Arrangements? The house. Your living situation." Her eyes darted around the kitchen I'd remodeled myself 5 years ago. Dad left everything to me to manage. The estate, the properties. All of it. The tea scalded my tongue as I took a nervous sip. "I don't understand. This is my home." "Was your home?" She checked her watch, a Cartier that James had given her for her 30th birthday. "You need to start looking for somewhere more appropriate for your situation. A senior community, perhaps." My situation? The mug trembled in my hands. "I'm 65, not 95. Dad always worried you couldn't handle the finances. The taxes on this place alone are astronomical." Her tone suggested I was a child who couldn't grasp basic math. "I've already contacted a realtor. They're coming tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" The room spun around me. "But I haven't even sorted through his clothes. I've hired people for that." She pulled out her phone, swiping through messages without looking at me. "You have 2 weeks to find somewhere else. I can loan you money for a deposit if needed." "Loan me." My voice cracked. "Carla, this is my home. James and I built this together." Her face hardened like concrete setting. "Dad built it. And he left it to me." I set the mug down before I dropped it. "There must be a mistake. James would never." "There's no mistake, Mom." She finally looked at me, her eyes cold as winter glass. "Dad knew you'd fall apart without him. You always needed taking care of. Now it's time for you to find somewhere else to die." Script part separator ===. The cruelty of her words stunned me into silence. My own daughter, the little girl I'd nursed through fevers and nightmares, telling me to find somewhere else to die. My kitchen suddenly felt like it was closing in around me. "I need to see the will," I finally managed to say. Carla shrugged, already halfway out of the room. "Mr. Blackwood has it. He'll do a formal reading next week, but he's already explained everything to me." Her voice trailed behind her like a poisonous vapor. "Start packing, Mom. I'm thinking of repainting your bedroom blue." That night, I sat on the edge of our bed, my bed now, staring at James's empty pillow. 37 years of marriage, and I didn't even know what was in his will. How was that possible? We discussed it years ago, of course. Everything to each other, then to Carla. Simple. Straightforward. At least that's what I thought we'd agreed on. I reached for my phone with trembling fingers. Frank Blackwood had been James's attorney for decades. Surely he would explain this misunderstanding. His assistant answered, her voice professionally sympathetic when I explained who I was. I'm so sorry for your loss, Mrs. Harmon. Mr. Blackwood has scheduled the will reading for next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Would you like me to send a car for you? No, thank you. I just need to know if what my daughter is saying is true. Did James leave everything to her? A pause. I'm not at liberty to discuss the contents before the official reading. Her tone softened. But Mr. Blackwood specifically asked me to ensure you attend. He was quite insistent about it. I'll be there, I promised. The next morning, I woke to the sound of strangers in my home. A woman with a clipboard and two men in matching polo shirts were measuring my living room. Excuse me. I clutched my robe closed. What are you doing? The woman barely glanced up. Mrs. Harmon? Carla hired us to catalog the furnishings. She's decided to auction most of it. Auction my? I couldn't finish the sentence. These were my things. My memories. The sofa where James and I had watched countless movies. The antique coffee table we'd found on our trip to Vermont. The paintings I'd selected for each wall. The woman must have seen something breaking in my expression because she lowered her clipboard. I'm sorry. Would you like a moment? Script part separator . I stepped back, shaking my head. What I'd like is for you to leave my house. The steel in my voice surprised even me. The woman hesitated, then motioned to her colleagues. Let's take a break, guys. After they left, I dressed quickly, grabbed my purse, and fled. I couldn't bear to watch strangers inventory my life as if I were already dead. I drove aimlessly for hours, finally parking at Riverside Park, where James had proposed 4 decades earlier. My phone buzzed with Carla's name. I declined the call, then turned the device off completely. The silence was momentarily comforting. That's when I spotted Margaret, my oldest friend, walking her corgi along the path. She saw me and immediately hurried over, concern etched across her face. Ellie, what are you doing here alone? You look terrible. The tears I'd been holding back burst forth as I told her everything. Margaret's expression shifted from shock to outrage. Stay with us, she insisted, squeezing my hand. David and I have the guest room ready. You shouldn't be alone right now, especially with Carla acting like this. I couldn't tell her I was too proud to accept, so I lied. Thank you, but I need some time in my own space. To process everything. That night, I slept in my car 2 blocks from Margaret's apartment. The back seat was cramped, and every passing headlight woke me with a jolt. By morning, my back screamed in protest, and my dignity lay in tatters around me like discarded clothing. I drove to a diner, using their bathroom to make myself presentable. As I sipped bitter coffee at the counter, reality crashed over me. I was homeless, penniless, and my daughter, the only family I had left, had orchestrated it all. The waitress refilled my cup without asking. Rough night? She asked, eyeing the creases in my clothes. You could say that. She nodded knowingly. My mother-in-law lived in her car for 3 months before she finally told us she'd been evicted. Pride's a killer. Her words hit me like a slap. Pride was exactly what had me sleeping in a luxury SUV rather than accepting help. What was I proving, and to whom? I left a generous tip and drove straight to Margaret's. She opened the door in her bathrobe, relief washing over her face. I need help, I admitted, my voice breaking. She pulled me inside without a word. That afternoon, settled in Margaret's guest room, I received a text from Frank Blackwood's office. A reminder about Tuesday's reading, followed by, Mr. Blackwood asks if you could arrive 30 minutes early. He needs to speak with you privately before your daughter arrives. Script part separator . Hope surged through me for the first time since James's death. Why would Frank want to see me early? What did he know that Carla didn't? Tuesday morning came with agonizing slowness. I dressed carefully in a navy suit James had always loved, applied makeup to hide the shadows beneath my eyes, and drove Margaret's borrowed car to the gleaming downtown office building where Frank practiced law. The receptionist ushered me immediately into his corner office. Frank stood as I entered, a tall man with silver hair and the sharp eyes of someone who missed nothing. "Eleanor," he said warmly, taking my hands. "I'm so sorry about James. He was not just a client but a friend." "Thank you, Frank. I'm confused about everything." He nodded, gesturing to a chair. "That's why I wanted to see you before Carla arrives." His expression turned serious. "Has she discussed the will with you?" "She says James left everything to her. That I need to leave my home." I fought to keep my voice steady. "Is it true?" A curious smile played at the corner of Frank's mouth. "Did Carla actually read the will herself?" "I don't think so. She said you explained everything to her." Frank leaned back, steepling his fingers. "I provided her with a high-level summary, as she requested. But clearly, she didn't grasp the nuances." "Nuances?" My heart pounded so loudly, I was sure he could hear it. "James was a meticulous man, Eleanor. And he adored you." Frank reached for a thick folder. "Before we get into details, there's something else you should know." The door opened, and Frank's assistant appeared. "Ms. Harmon has arrived, sir." Frank nodded, then looked at me with something like mischief in his eyes. "Are you ready?" "For what?" "To watch your daughter learn that she severely misunderstood the situation." Script part separator ===. I smoothed my skirt nervously as Carla strode into the room with the confidence of someone who already owned everything in it. She wore an expensive black dress that screamed wealthy widow rather than grieving daughter. Behind her trailed a man I'd never seen before, tall, with slick back hair and a suit that cost more than my car. "Mother," she said, her voice dripping with false concern. "You look rested. I was worried when you disappeared." "I'm fine," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "Who's your friend?" "This is Victor Reeves," Carla said, placing her hand possessively on his arm. "My fiancé." "Fiancé?" I couldn't hide my shock. "But your father just died." Victor extended his hand with a practiced smile. "I'm so sorry for your loss, Mrs. Harmon. Carla's told me so much about you." I doubted that very much, but I shook his hand anyway. "Funny, she's never mentioned you." Frank cleared his throat. "Shall we begin?" "Please, everyone take a seat." Carla sat directly across from me, crossing her legs elegantly. Victor stood behind her like a bodyguard. "Before I read James's last will and testament," Frank began, "I want to clarify that this document was updated 6 months ago, with sound mind and proper witnesses." "We know all this," Carla interrupted. "Can we skip to the relevant parts? My mother needs to finalize her moving arrangements." Frank's eyebrows rose slightly. "Interesting that you should mention that, Carla." He adjusted his glasses and opened the thick folder. "Let's start, shall we?" As Frank began reading the formal opening of the will, I watched Carla's face. She looked bored, occasionally checking her watch or exchanging glances with Victor. She already thought she knew everything. Script part separator ===. Frank flipped to the next page, his voice taking on a more pointed tone. "Now, regarding the distribution of assets, James Harmon's estate, valued at approximately $33 million, including properties, investments, and liquid assets, shall be handled as follows." Carla straightened in her chair, her expression smug. "Temporary stewardship of all assets is granted to Carla Elizabeth Harmon," Frank continued, "with the explicit condition that she manage said assets for the benefit of Eleanor Marie Harmon until such time as Eleanor selects a new permanent residence." The confidence drained from Carla's face like water from a broken glass. "What does that mean exactly?" she asked, her voice suddenly tense. Frank looked directly at her, removing his glasses. "Did you even read the will, Carla?" Her face turned ghostly white. Victor's hand tightened on her shoulder. "It means," Frank continued, "that you were never given ownership." You were given temporary management responsibilities. Upon Eleanor choosing her next home, whether that's a new house, condo, or senior living facility of her choosing, the entirety of the estate transfers directly to her control. I folded my hands in my lap, fighting to suppress the growing sense of vindication bubbling up inside me. That's impossible, Carla sputtered. You told me. I told you that your father had made arrangements for the estate's management, Frank cut in. I assumed you would actually read the document before telling your mother to find somewhere else to die. Those were your exact words, weren't they? Victor shifted uncomfortably behind Carla. There must be some misunderstanding, he interjected smoothly. Perhaps we should consult another attorney for a second opinion. Frank smiled thinly. By all means. But the language is quite clear. He slid a copy across the table. Page 16, paragraph 4. You'll note James's signature and those of 2 witnesses. Carla snatched the document, her manicured nails crumpling the edge of the paper as she frantically flipped pages. Script part separator ===. My heart pounded as I watched Carla's world collapse around her. The daughter who'd thrown me out like trash was now facing the reality that she'd never owned anything. This is a mistake, she hissed, jabbing her finger at the document. Daddy wouldn't do this to me. Frank leaned forward. There's more, Carla. Your father added specific instructions regarding the family home. What instructions? She demanded. Eleanor has sole right of occupancy until she chooses to leave. You cannot sell it, rent it, or alter it without her express written permission. Frank turned to me. Eleanor, you are not required to leave your home. Not tomorrow, not next week, not ever, unless you decide to. I couldn't stop the tears of relief. My home was still mine. Furthermore, Frank continued, any expenses related to the maintenance of the property come from the estate, not from Eleanor personally. Victor stepped forward, his charm suddenly businesslike. There must be provisions for challenging this arrangement. Mr. Harmon clearly wasn't thinking clearly when, I assure you, he was. Frank interrupted. In fact, James anticipated potential challenges. He recorded a video statement explaining his decisions. Would you like to see it? A video? I whispered. Frank nodded. Made the same day he signed the will. He was quite explicit about his reasons. Carla's face flushed red. This is ridiculous. You can't possibly expect me to honor your father's wishes? I found my voice. To treat your mother with basic human dignity? Why is that so difficult, Carla? She turned to me, eyes narrowed. You have no idea what Daddy and I discussed. You were always too busy with your charity work and garden clubs to notice what was really happening. What's that supposed to mean? Frank cleared his throat. Perhaps this is a good time to mention the second matter I needed to discuss. It concerns some irregularities I discovered in reviewing your husband's accounts. Irregularities? The room suddenly felt colder. Script part separator ===. Frank opened another file. James maintained several offshore accounts that weren't disclosed in his official financial statements. I discovered them while preparing the estate documents. What kind of accounts? Asked, my mouth suddenly dry. Shell companies primarily. Registered in the Cayman Islands and Panama. He glanced at Carla. Did you know about these, Carla? Her face was unreadable. Daddy had many business interests. The way she said it sent a chill down my spine. These accounts show regular transfers, substantial amounts, over the past 3 years, Frank continued. Nearly $5 million moved through them. My head spun. $5 million? James and I lived well, but we weren't extravagant. Where had that money come from? Where had it gone? Business investments, Carla said dismissively. Nothing unusual for someone of Daddy's stature. Frank's expression hardened. These weren't normal investment vehicles, Carla. The pattern suggests money laundering. The accusation hung in the air like smoke. That's absurd, Victor interjected. James Harmon was a respected businessman. Indeed, Frank replied coolly. Which is why I was disturbed to find your name, Mr. Reeves, on several of the transaction documents. Victor's confident facade cracked. My name? As financial advisor for 3 of these shell companies. Frank turned to me. Eleanor, I believe James may have been involved in something problematic. And I'm concerned that both Carla and her fiancé were aware of it. My daughter's face had transformed entirely, no longer smug, not even angry. She looked afraid. I need time to process this, I said quietly. Frank, may I take these documents? Of course. He handed me a sealed envelope. This contains everything I've found so far. But there's more. In reviewing James's personal effects, I discovered this. He slid a small key across the table. Safety deposit box, he explained. First National Bank, downtown branch. James rented it 3 years ago, paid in cash. The bank manager is expecting you. Script part separator I stared at the key, its weight suddenly significant in my palm. What would I find in that safety deposit box? My thoughts were interrupted by Carla's chair scraping back. This is completely inappropriate, she snapped, gathering her purse. You have no right to pry into Daddy's private business affairs. I have every right, I countered, surprising myself with my steadiness. I was his wife for nearly 4 decades. And clearly, he kept you in the dark about the important things. Her voice dripped with disdain. There's a reason he didn't trust you with his business. Frank cleared his throat. Actually, Carla, the video statement addresses that as well. Would you still like to see it? She hesitated, and in that moment, I knew she was afraid of what her father might have said. Save it, she finally spat. Victor and I have a lunch reservation. She turned to me, eyes cold. This isn't over, Mother. After they stormed out, I collapsed back into my chair, emotionally drained but somehow lighter. Are you all right, Eleanor? Frank asked gently. I think so. Just processing. Did James really make a video? He did. Frank's expression softened. Would you like to see it? I nodded, my heart racing. Frank turned his computer monitor toward me and clicked a file. James's face appeared on screen. Healthy, vibrant, alive. The sight of him knocked the breath from my lungs. If you're watching this, Ellie, he began, I'm gone. And you're probably confused and hurt. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. His familiar voice washed over me like a warm tide. I've been keeping secrets, he continued. Some to protect you, others? Well, I'm not proud of everything I've done. But I need you to know that everything, every decision, every account, every property, it was all for you. Even the things you'll discover and wish you hadn't. Script part separator Frank paused the video, his expression grave. Do you want to continue watching now, or would you prefer some time? I swallowed hard. Now. I need to know everything. The video resumed, James looking directly into the camera as if he could see me. Carla's been involved in some of my less reputable business dealings. Not by choice at first. I pulled her in 3 years ago when I needed someone I could trust. The investment firm she works for, it's a front, Ellie. For moving money. My hands trembled. The financial company where my daughter was a vice president, a front? For what? People came to me when they needed problems solved, James continued. Properties acquired without questions, money moved quietly. I was good at it. Too good. He sighed, suddenly looking older. Victor Reeves approached Carla first, not knowing she was my daughter. When she realized what he wanted, she called me. That's how they met. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Their relationship had begun through a legal business. I've left everything to you, Ellie, because I trust you to do the right thing. The accounts Frank found are just the surface. The safety deposit box contains a drive with everything, names, dates, amounts. Enough to bring down some powerful people. His expression darkened. Including Victor. He's dangerous, Ellie. More dangerous than Carla knows. She thinks she's in control of the relationship, but he's using her to get to what I built. James leaned closer to the camera. You have 21 days from the will reading to access the safety deposit box before others will be notified of its existence. I've arranged it that way to give you time to decide what to do. If you destroy the evidence, you'll be safe, but wealthy criminals stay free. If you turn it over to the authorities, you'll lose almost everything we built. The video ended with James saying softly, I'm sorry to leave you with this burden, my love. But you're stronger than anyone knows, especially Carla. You'll make the right choice. You always do. The screen went black, and I stared at my reflection in the darkened monitor, a widow with secrets raining down around her. 21 days to decide. The clock was already ticking. Script part separator ===. I left Frank's office in a daze, the safety deposit box, key burning a hole in my purse. The world looked different now, every person on the street potentially connected to James's hidden life. Frank, I asked before leaving, does anyone else know about this video? Only me, he assured me. James was explicit, you see it first, then decide, who else should know? I nodded, suddenly understanding the gravity of my position. The 21 days. How many do I have left? 19, Frank said. The clock started ticking at the reading. 19 days to uncover a lifetime of secrets. To decide whether to protect my husband's legacy or expose it. I drove straight to First National Bank, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. The manager was expecting me, just as Frank had said. He led me to a private room with a safety deposit box already waiting. Take all the time you need, Mrs. Harmon, he said, closing the door behind him. The metal box looked ordinary, nothing to suggest it contained evidence of criminal enterprises. I inserted the key, turned it, and lifted the lid. Inside lay a single USB drive, a handwritten letter, and a small leather notebook. I opened the letter first. My dearest Eleanor, it began in James's familiar script. If you're reading this, you've learned things about me that I never wanted you to know. The man you married wasn't entirely who you thought he was. My eyes blurred with tears as I continued reading his confession. James detailed how he'd started legitimately, but gradually moved into helping wealthy clients hide assets, launder money, and acquire properties through shell companies. How power and secrecy became addictive. How Carla had not only known, but eventually become his partner. The notebook contained names, dates, amounts, a meticulous record of every transaction. I recognized some of the names. Politicians, business people, even a judge. People we'd had dinner with. Friends, I'd thought. And there, on the final page, a notation that made my blood run cold. Victor Reeves, former enforcer for Santiago cartel. Approach through Carla deliberate.
Danger.
My daughter wasn't just involved in financial crimes. She was engaged to a cartel operative who had targeted her intentionally. Script part separator ===. I called Margaret from the bank parking lot, my hands still trembling. I need your guest room for a bit longer. And I need your discretion. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing James's face on that video, hearing his confession. The USB drive sat on the nightstand untouched. I wasn't ready to see whatever was on it. The next morning, my phone exploded with texts from Carla. Mother, we need to talk. Come to the house at 2. This is urgent. Don't make me come find you. The final message sent ice through my veins. Victor says there are things in Daddy's office that need to be secured immediately. If you know what's good for you, you'll bring any items you took from the lawyer. They were panicking.
Good.
I texted back. I'll be there. Alone or not at all. When I pulled into the driveway of my home, and it was my home, as the will confirmed, Carla was pacing on the front porch. She looked terrible, designer outfit impeccable, but her eyes wild with fear. Where have you been? She hissed as I approached. Discovering who my husband really was, I replied calmly. And who my daughter became. You have no idea what you're involved in, she whispered, glancing nervously at the street. Victor is a cartel enforcer, I finished. I know exactly who he is, Carla. The question is, do you? The color drained from Carla's face. How did you? Your father told me everything. The safety deposit box, the USB drive, the notebook. I know about the money laundering, the shell companies. All of it. She grabbed my arm, pulling me inside. You need to destroy it all.
Now.
These people don't play games. Neither do I. I shook her off. Not anymore. 2 days later, I sat in the district attorney's office, the evidence spread across his desk. Frank beside me, steady as a rock. This is extraordinary, Mrs. Harmon, the DA said. Enough to bring down half the city's elite. And my daughter?
He sighed.
Immunity in exchange for testimony. It's the best we can offer. Within 48 hours, the arrests began. Victor was taken in a dawn raid. The media exploded with headlines. Developer's widow exposes massive criminal enterprise. Carla came to me the night before her grand jury appearance, broken and humbled. Why did you do it? I asked. Why betray me? Power, she whispered. Dad made it look so easy. Then Victor came along and she shook her head. I became someone else. I held my daughter as she cried. Not forgiving, but understanding how easy it is to lose yourself. 1 month later, I stood on the balcony of my new beachfront condo, the estate funds safely transferred to my account. A reporter called, seeking an exclusive. Mrs. Harmon, how did you find the courage to expose everything, knowing what it would cost? I smiled, watching the sunset paint the ocean gold. When you've lost everything that matters, you discover what truly remains is the most valuable thing of all, your integrity. I hung up, raising my glass to the horizon where I imagined James watching. Always read the fine print, I whispered to the wind, and always keep your own set of books. The end. The horizon blurred as tears filled my eyes. From homeless widow to whistleblower millionaire in 6 weeks. Not the retirement James and I planned, but one thing I know for certain, betrayal teaches you who you truly are when everything else is stripped away.